was in a plane crash on May 19th, 2013, off of Shelter Island in Juneau, Alaska. I was told that I should write down everything that happened and how I felt, all my sentiments about the incident and how the day went, and I was told it was therapeutic. I decided I would make a recording instead because I can get the information down a lot quicker. And this way I can share my story with you without having to retell it 1,000 times. And this will be the most detailed account of the story and my first full explanation of exactly what happened in as much detail as I can remember. So it might drag on, but it's not only for you, it's for me, so I can look back and remember what I went through that day. So I hope you enjoy listening. It was about 6:30, 7 o'clock a.m., and Bob did a long pre-flight, turned the plane around, brought it to the other end of the beach, so we had a long runway. He made sure there was no water in the fuel line, and he checked everything as he normally would on the plane. We said our goodbyes to Trevor's family, and Dana, and they prepared for us to take off. They got their cameras out, and it was going to be exciting to see us fly away. And we went to the other end of the beach. We went to turn the plane around, and the plane wouldn't turn around because the wheels got caught in the sand. So Bob and I had to turn off the plane, get out, and turn the plane manually in order to angle us down the beach for a proper takeoff. So we did that. Bob again checked everything, and we got Kane, the dog, in the back of the plane, and we prepared for takeoff. We made sure our headsets worked clearly, and our seatbelts were fastened. And we started going down the beach. I remember when we took off, it was a slight bump. We kind of bounced twice off the beach, which was a little startling, but right after that, we smoothly sailed up into the air, and you could see Trevor and Dana waving at us as we flew away. Bob gave a little wave down, and we took off. And the way we flew toward the end of the beach, you kind of go above some rocks that jettied out a little bit, and we sailed up over those, and so it was kind of harder to see where we were headed from the beach from the perspective of the cabin where everyone was standing. We took off, and I gave a little sigh of relief, looked over at Bob, and he had a big smile on his face and said, "We're all right," and we kept going. There's another cove directly around the corner from the one we were in that had another cabin. It seemed like nobody was there, and there was another jetty that came out on the other end of that, which was a pretty far distance, a pretty wide cove. As we angled away, we started gaining altitude, and Bob was trying to get us in the air. I thought maybe he was going to cut back over Shelter Island so we could do an immediate flyby, as we normally did. And as we were climbing, we were veering up at an angle, but still over the water pretty good, further out than... I didn't really know where he was going. I just know we were kind of cutting around the island, but pretty far out to sea. And as we were going up, I remember looking back toward the beach, seeing where it was, and looking at the next beach, and just examining the island. And then all of a sudden, the engine shut off on the plane, and we were between 300 and 500 feet in the air. Bob remembers seeing the odometer saying 320 last, and I never saw it, but it shut off. Bob reaches out in front of me. Suddenly, he just reaches over and pulls on this little lever a few times. It's supposed to get any water out of the fuel line, which was a big concern. He told me if there's water in the fuel line, it'll shut your engine off, it'll cut it off, and that's a big reason why people crash planes. And he pulled out a few times and tried to start the plane. It was all in like 3 seconds, and my legs I got butterflies in my legs right away as the engine's off, because I know, we're not flying anymore, we're stalling out. And then immediately Bob turns to the beach, and I could see the panic on his face. It was just like his jaw was a little open, and he just realization. And before he even said it, I already knew that we were going to have to make an emergency landing. We were going to crash. In normal terms, we were going to crash the plane. And I just saw the beach, and I pointed toward it, of the next cove. And I pointed at it, and Bob was already steering the plane toward it, and we were up so high that it felt like, okay, we're going to be able to glide in pretty good, probably even glide too far. And I thought he might have to even slow us down. I mean, these are thoughts going through my head, 100 miles an hour, before like 5 seconds are up, I'm already, it's a quick thought. And I was wrong, because immediately he put the plane into a nosedive, because of the fact we were stalling out. We couldn't just glide in to shore because we had no more speed. In order for us not to smack suddenly to the water and die on impact, he had to gain some speed, so we came in like a bird, like as if we were landing on a runway. So in that nosedive, I just sat there patiently waiting, and I thought about what I needed to do. If we survive the impact, we're not gonna make it to shore. I can already tell that we're not getting anywhere near is where I thought we were. We were dropping very quickly, and it was happening very fast. And I started thinking about car accidents when you watch movies and plane crashes, and the water fills up and people drown and they can't get out. And I just thought about what I need to do as this plane's filling up with water. And I thought about where my door handle was behind my right shoulder, and I thought about my seatbelt over my chest, and I thought about how to get out quickly. And then immediately my focus was back to where we were headed. I could see the water, I could see the beach much further out than I anticipated we would be. And it was really silent. It was just quiet, and it felt almost like peaceful, like I felt like we're going to be okay. But still, you don't know, because it's going to, like, the impact is going to be way different. But it felt pretty good, I guess, as good as it could feel. I felt confident in Bob, and even choosing to fly with him, I felt like if I were to be in a crash, I would want it to be with this guy rather than somebody else, Even if somebody else does know their stuff, I feel like he's the kind of guy who could make it happen and do the right thing, and he is a good pilot. And I'm thinking, wow, we got a pretty good angle. My hope is that we're going to just skim across the water, and I'm sure something will happen, but it felt like the water was going to slow us down pretty good at a nice skim, even though this wasn't a float plane. And when we hit the water, I just felt a bump, a quick bump, and the plane did an instant front smack, and the propeller went straight down into the water, and we were abruptly stopped so suddenly that within a half second after we stopped in the initial impact, water was pouring in the plane up to my waist, and I was already unbuckling my seatbelt, and my door was open in a second. It was open so quickly because I was just ready to go. And I remember seeing water pouring down below the windshield and over the dash of the plane, and it was nose down, just filling like a bottle, and the tail was pointed in the air. And I crawled out, right away, and I hear Bob choking on water was the first thing I heard, and I was thinking, I'm getting out, I'm pulling Bob out right after. And I look back in, and Bob's already crawling out, and he's all right, and I'm out up on the wing out of the plane, and Bob's reaching in, and he's like, Kane, where's Kane?
reaching for the dog, and he goes back down into the plane, and I'm almost thinking like, we're crazy, but it's slow enough to where, he can get him if he can. And then he says he saw Kane swimming out the other side, so the other door must have swung open, and Kane was able to swim away out there. And he was swimming around the plane, and we get out, and we're in the water, and Bob's like, get on the plane, because it's still floating. And Kane is just, where's Kane is what I said. And Kane is just swimming away towards shore. He's gone. He's beelining it a good 1,000 yards to shore in freezing Alaskan waters. Me and Bob sit on the plane, and I look over, and so does he, and we think we see I'll have to finish in a bit. Hello? And we think we see Trevor's head. Trevor's the guy who was renting the cabin with his family out on the island. And we think we see his face looking over the rocks at us, so we're, hopeful that he'll be coming any minute with the boat. We're going to be all right. He saw us go down, Even though we can't see the beach, we think we see him up on the rocks, so that kind of gives us some comfort. But we're still panicking, and not panicking, but moving quickly and speaking carefully and being really thoughtful of what we need to do before this plane sinks, because it could be any minute. We didn't know. We assumed we had about 5 minutes. I don't know, I guess we didn't say that, but we just felt like it was going to be pretty long, because it didn't feel like it kind of stopped for a while at a certain level. So we start looking around, and I'm thinking, Bob, what do we got in there that floats? Is there life vests? Is there anything inflatable in there? He says no. I'm like, did the seats float? No. So nothing floats. I remembered I had a Camelback backpack in there, but the bladder was not inside. Otherwise I would have tried to fish that out of there, because we got a long ways to go, and that water is really cold. And if we weren't seen, which I waved a few times and did yell, I should have been going crazy, but we were so close yet so out of sight that we thought that, because when we were high in the air and we look out over as we're coming down, I can see the beach, I can see where they were. But as we dropped, my focus shifted to where I was headed and just zoned in on the situation, and I kind of didn't realize that they couldn't see us hit the water. So we're looking around, we're thinking, what do we need? What do we got? What can we use? Bob says, get on the plane. We're sitting on the plane. We're going to stay on the plane as long as we can. And I say, we need to take off our sweatshirts so we can swim. We got a long swim ahead of us, and we need to get there. Bob says, no, let's leave our sweatshirts on, because we want the warmth for our body. We need that warmth. I mean, we're in Alaska where there's glaciers in the water. I mean, there's snow on the trees still. It's freezing ass cold. And so that was a huge dilemma for me on the plane, whether I wanted to take my sweatshirt off or leave it on, because how much warmer was I really going to feel? And I think if anybody's jumped in the water with their clothes on, they realize how slow and how much that'll drain your energy. So that was a huge thing to think about. And I ended up listening to Bob, because I figure, I could take it off if I need it off, at some point. But for now, I'll listen to him and leave it on. And I had huge hiking boots on also that got weighted down instantly, and I was wondering, should I take those off? And then I started thinking, your hands and your feet are where all your heat comes from. If you lose your heat in your hands and your feet, then you start getting cold very quickly, and that's where hypothermia starts, and that's what'll drop your whole body temperature the quickest. So I don't want to lose my shoes, although I know I cannot kick for nothing with weights on the bottom of my feet, but I just go in with them anyways, just to try it out. I can always take them off, I think. So we're sitting on the plane, and this is kind of, I don't know, I took my phone out, and it worked, And Bob says, call somebody. And I say, who am I going to call? I don't know anybody's number. I don't have anybody's number who's there in Alaska. I guess I could have called 911, but no matter what, nobody's going to get there before we get to shore, was my thought. And Trevor's going to be here any minute anyhow, so it doesn't matter. So I flipped open the camera and I took a few pictures of us. I figure, what the hell, if we die, at least somebody can see the pictures, and if we live, at least I'll have a picture for the rest of my life. So I just snap a few, and that's it. And then I give Bob the phone, and he starts trying to call, remembering numbers, looking for one number that he called, a guy named Yasik. He called with my phone earlier in the week, and he couldn't find it fast enough, and before you knew it, a minute and a half later, 2 minutes, between a minute and a half and 2 minutes, that plane, it all of a sudden got filled enough to where it was going, and it just started dropping suddenly. And Bob just said, let's go, and I'm like, you got my phone? Because I would have just, put it in my pocket rather than lose it if I do survive. And he says, yeah, I got it, get in the water, let's go, we gotta go. And we start going, and the water is so cold instantly, so cold, and we're swimming. Right when we start, he's like, all right, what are we doing? He kept saying, and I kept saying, what are we doing? Where are we going? And we're just using our heads thinking, what are we doing? I said, we're backstroking. We're on our backs. We got to float on our backs, Bob. We got to backstroke. Lay on your back, float, and kick your legs, and paddle backwards like me. And so he goes through, he's like, all right, we're backstroking, and we're on our backs, and we're stroking, looking up at the sky, the cloudy sky, and these freezing waters 1,000 yards from shore. And we keep looking over every, 10, 20 seconds to see if Trevor's coming with that boat. We're both hoping. I'm hoping Trevor's coming. He's coming around that corner. Any minute now, and I can see the boat because the rocks jet down in such a way, and the boat is out so far from shore because they had to anchor down away from shore for when the tide goes down and up. Right now the tide is almost up. So I'm thinking, okay, Trevor still has to get in the dinghy and paddle out to the boat before he can even get out here. And plus he has to pull up the anchor, so there's still hope that he saw us and he's coming. So that's always in my mind, he's coming. But as time went on and we got colder and Bob was really struggling to swim, he was messing with his boots, sticking them in the air, and he wasn't really moving. It's like he kept getting splashed in the face and was kind of sucking water, and I'm trying to encourage him, come on Bob, we're close, we just got to keep moving, backstroke, stay on your back, float on your back. And he's trying all different ways to swim, and I can feel like I could see the doubt in him, and I'm thinking, like, what am I going to do if Bob starts going under? What am I going to do? If he starts going under, I cannot do anything. I'm to the point where I don't even know if I could make it. It's getting really cold. If I cramp up right now, I'm done. If for some reason I get to the point where I can't swim, I'm just going to be floating on my back, freezing to death, and I don't want to freeze to death. And so all I can do is just focus and swim faster. And so I just start swimming ahead of Bob, thinking I can't just wait for him, I can't help him. If he gets in a situation where he starts taking in water or panicking, I can't save him because he's going to pull me under. It's just instinct to grab somebody if you're going to drown. And if I were drowning, he couldn't have, I know he would have done the same. He couldn't have helped me. He would have just tried to talk me through it, but he couldn't actually pull me up because, it's too dangerous out there that far away from any flotation device. And so we're swimming and we're going, and I'd say since we jumped off the plane, it's been about 5 minutes of swimming at least, and I'm starting to lose hope. I don't hear the boat, I don't see the boat moving, and I'm praying, and I switch to front stroke, and I'm looking at the beach, and there's waves splashing toward me because the wind is coming toward us from around the island, and those waves are crashing in such a way that it feels like I'm not getting any closer. And when you're that far away and you're at eye level with the water, it feels a lot further. You get a real perspective of how far it is compared to being in the air. Like when we were going down in the plane, I remember thinking, oh, we're going to be alright. We can make that, that's doable. But when you're down there and you don't feel like you're getting anywhere and you got a sweatshirt weighing you down and boots on your feet, you start to wonder, you start to wonder if you're going to really make it. I get to a point where I don't know if I can, but no matter what, I'm not going to stop trying. I will paddle, and if I have to, I will leave Bob and get help as soon as I can. And I start to wonder, so I go underwater and I take my sweatshirt off. I just spent $80 on this sweatshirt, and it crosses my mind for a second. I love this damn sweatshirt, but it's like, who cares? Like, it's my life, and I'm never going to see anybody I love or any of my friends, anybody I care about, just anybody. I'm never going to be able to touch anyone's life again. I'm never going to be touched. I'm just going to be that kid who went to Alaska and died in a plane crash, and I'm never going to have kids, a family, like, just stuff that I really want out of life. Like, I'm never going to have it. And I start just praying, God, please. And then I start calling out. I'm swimming, and Jesus, save me. In the name of Jesus, please save me. And looking back, and I'm getting further and further away from Bob. I'm probably 30 yards away from him now. And I'm yelling back at him, come on, Bob, keep going, and keep going. We got this. And I'm swimming my heart out, feeling like I'm not getting any closer, but I'm never going to stop kicking. I'm never going to stop paddling. And I yell out, please, Jesus, save us. In the name, I'm not yelling, but I'm just speaking to myself out loud, speaking to God, save us. And as I'm swimming, I'm looking forward, and I look left toward the cove, and I see a boat. And it's not Trevor's boat, it's a different boat. And I look at it twice, like as if it's like a mirage or something, like I don't even believe it. But it's a small fishing boat. And I look at it, and I think twice, that's not tied to shore, that's out there. It's a ways away, and I just fill with I fill with emotion, and I just start swinging my arms in the air, and I start screaming, help, as loud as I can. Help! And I see a head turn around, and I'm swinging, help! And I know they're thinking twice, like, what the hell are people doing way out there in the middle of the ocean? And all of a sudden that boat motor turns on and starts coming toward us, and I'm just ecstatic, like, I can't even believe it. Like, we're gonna be alright. This is when I know we are gonna be saved. We've been in the ocean for about, I'd say 8 to 11 minutes, 8 to 12 minutes now, somewhere in there, after jumping off the plane, and now we're gonna be saved. Like, we're gonna live. And I yell back to Bob, there's a boat coming, we're saved, we're gonna be alright, Bob, we're gonna be alright, just stay up, we're saved. And he says, no one's coming, man, just keep paddling. And later I found out that he thought I was panicking and thinking I wasn't gonna make it, and he thought that I was kind of going under and screaming, my last goodbyes. But I was saying, no, Bob, they're coming. We got a boat coming right now. And he didn't realize until he just kept staying on his back and swimming until he heard that boat coming up close. And they're coming in, they slow down, and they're looking at us, and I'm like, our plane crashed. Let me in, please. We need to get in fast, And they're like, we're like, did you see us go down? And they're like, no, what do you? And they're looking at us like they don't even know what the hell's going on. Like, they almost like they didn't know it was real. Like, we think that they were maybe stoned or something, because these guys are just like not registering the fact that we are in fucking icy cold water, like on the verge of hypothermia, and they're just staring at us, coming by us, like talking to us like we're just people going for a little swim. And I'm like, can I please get in the boat? Please, I'm freezing. Please let me in the boat. And they pull up next to me real quick. And I crawl up in there quick, and they're kind of circling around Bob to get the angle. And I'm like, get him in the boat. Please get him in the boat. And Bob's like, somebody help me. And they're just kind of like standing there like, no, what the hell's going on? What are we doing? And I'm like, get him in the boat. And they pull up next, Bob kind of backstrokes, and I reach out, grab his arm, and I yank him up in the boat. And we're like, Bob says, can you please take us to the cabin? We're with Dana around the corner at their cabin. We need to go back immediately. We're freezing. And they just start beelining it for the cabin. And right when they start going toward it, Trevor's boat is coming toward us. So he was on his way, and he would have saved us, probably, had he have seen us in the water, which I'm sure he would have. But once he saw their boat stop out next to us, he realized something's out there. That's them. Those guys aren't whale watching. That's where he imagined the plane was, because he thought he saw something but wasn't sure. And he just beelined it, and he said, oh my effing God. It rolled up, just in shock, didn't know what to do. And Bob's points toward the beach, and he's like, get Kane, get Kane. And Trevor's like, what? He's like, Kane, and points to shore, and the dog's running around chasing ravens on shore like nothing even happened. He's just just alive and fine. I don't know how that damn dog swam so fast ashore. A black lab. I mean, that dog is old, and he just didn't stop. Later we thought back, like, we should have grabbed onto Kane's tail. We should have just had him tow us in, because he really would have towed us both in. We both helped a little bit. He would have brought us all the way in for sure, and that would have been a much better way to go had he not taken off so quick. But so we're flying in, and the guy throws a jacket over me, and I'm glad, they're registering, like, we're freezing. And I'm keeping my head down, and I'm just thanking God. I'm praying, and I'm shivering. I start to shiver. Bob's shivering. When we get in, we pull in, and everyone on shore is like, oh my God, because we're just soaking wet. And right when that boat touches, I say, thank you so much. I turn around, thank you guys so much. You saved our lives. Thank you so much. And I just start sprinting up the beach to the fire. They got a fire out front still. And when I get up there, I'm just shivering. And I just start taking off my clothes. I take off my shirt, and I'm warming up next to the fire. And they're saying, get in the cabin, because the cabin's hot. They got a little wood stove in there. And I'm like, I just need this fire for a second. And they're saying, get in the cabin. And Bob comes up, and Bob puts his hands in front of the fire. And it's so nice to feel the warmth against your hands, because you can't feel anything else. And I remember when they first said get in the cabin, I listened, and I walked in there with my shirt off and just in jeans. And I kicked my boots off, and I'm in the cabin, and I'm thinking, I can't feel nothing right now. And there's no warmth in here. I need to get back by that fire where I can feel something. And I go back out immediately, and I'm warming my hands, because I can feel that warmth on my hands, and it was so delightful. It was so, I just yearned for it so much that it was incredible. And we were trying to stay next to it, and they kept saying, you guys need to get in the cabin. And Bob was like, can you please stop yelling at me? I know what I'm doing. And Dana's dad, this big old guy, is like, Bob, you need to get in the cabin right now, and starts yelling at him, and Bob's almost angry with him, but they're just taking control of the situation, because they're thinking a lot clearer than we are. And so we get in the cabin, strip down as quick as we can, and they throw sleeping bags on us, and we both got like 3 or 4 sleeping bags on us, and we're laying there in bed, and we're talking to them about what happened, and we're trying to warm up, and we're convulsing violently, like shaking harder than I've ever, like shivering harder than I've ever shivered in my life. It was so intense, and it lasted for so long. I swear we were shivering for about 40 minutes, 45 minutes straight, 30, I don't know, a long damn time. I've never shivered that long and never shook that hard. I was like shaking in like 6-inch motions, like my whole body was just going nuts. And Dana, bless her soul, was at the base of the bed, and she was rubbing my feet, and I remember thinking, oh my God, this woman, I love her so much right now, because, who's going to ask, hey, can you rub my freezing cold feet? I would never do that, but she just did like motherly affection thing. She just started rubbing my feet and warming them up, and that was like, I was just so touched by that. It was like the best thing ever, and it really was helping a lot. And we just shivered it out and laid there and told them all what happened and relived it, and then we tried to nap, and I mean, my head was spinning. I've relived that crash so many times, and it's hard to get out of your head because it was so, I don't know, it was so real. I mean, it really happened. It's just the feelings I had throughout it, and the jitters in my legs, and just that feeling of thinking I was done and I was going to die and I would never see anybody I cared about again, and they would have to live with the fact that I died in a crash, and all the people I've developed relationships with and I won't be able to see again, and just an abrupt ending, and I haven't done what I want to do, you know. I haven't been kind enough, I haven't loved enough, I haven't had any kids, I haven't had a family, I haven't been the man I want to be, you know. I haven't been completely who I want to die as, you know. I'm not to that point. I'm not ready to die. I'm not finished. I'm not going to die with what I've been so far. I want to be more, and I want to do more for others. And that was like really like a touching thing that I think probably changed my life forever. I feel like I got a second chance at life being in there, sitting in that bed and trying to sleep. I started to think about everything, like what went wrong, what went down with the plane. I lost my sunglasses. I started thinking about everything I lost and things I need to replace, and then it was like, I don't care about any of that. My life is saved. I'm alive. I don't need any of that to be happy, and if I do, I'm just fooled by what the world tells you is important. I started thinking in that bed about how things could have gone differently, and I started to think about, well, what if Bob would have chose a different flight pattern? What if Bob would have floated? What if Bob would have made it further away from where those boats were? What if Bob would have decided to cut out over the water further out and didn't stay in close to shore? What if Bob took the plane up and over the trees quick and we crashed in the trees? Surely I would not be alive. There's so many. What if Bob wouldn't have even, what if he couldn't have landed that plane the way he did? What if he wouldn't have known how to land that plane? What if we didn't glide right into that landing so perfectly? What if we would have smacked instantly? For sure, I'd be dead. What if one of our wrists would have broken? What if our legs would have broken? I have huge bruises across my thigh. I have one pretty big bruise from where it hit the dash, and I have two bruises on my shins where they both went up and smacked on impact. What if one of my shins would have broken? What if one of us had broken something and the other hadn't? What if one of us got knocked out and the other hadn't? What if one of us drowned because of that? Because of a broken bone or a broken arm? What if Bob would have drowned? What if I would have had to sit there in the water and question whether I should try and hold Bob above the water, even though he can't get into shore? There's no way I could bring him into shore. Would I have sat there and held Bob up and tried to stay afloat with him and risk my own life? Or would I have swam away thinking that we were never going to make it and at least one of us can survive? The longer I sit there, the more heat I lose and the more energy I lose. Was I that sure that the boat was coming that I would sit there with Bob? Would he have sat there with me? Would he have left me broken and then the boat did come and we both have to live with the fact that he left me or I left him? What if we would have both got knocked out? I mean, there's so many things that I think about, that I thought about, what could have happened, and everything went perfectly. Everything went perfectly for us to survive, and I'm so blessed for that. I begged God for a second chance out there in the water, and I know it sounds dramatic, but God damn it, it is. It is dramatic. It was like a movie, like you watch a movie, and it was like that. It was me looking at shore so close yet so far, like I was getting pulled away from it. I could see life, yet I couldn't get there.
Once we were finished drying up and getting all back to normal health, we loaded up the boat with all the camping gear and made our way back toward Juneau. On our way around the cove that we crashed at, we decided to use a depth finder and look around for the plane, but we couldn't locate it. We were in kind of a hurry to get back, and we were unable to find it, but we did see that it was about 450 feet in depth, all the way to the bottom where the plane went down. Also, I took a long time trying to note where exactly we crashed and how far the distance was to shore. And there was jetties of rocks sticking out pretty far. And I look back at it, I want to be completely honest, I think it was somewhere between 700 and 1,000 yards, somewhere in that range. Definitely 1,000 yards to the beach, but to the rocks it was probably around 700 yards. Still a very long ways. We continued our way back, and things kind of went back to normal. Well, not really. We talked about it all day, over and over. We decided to have a party that night at Trevor and Dana's house, and we called it the Celebration of Life, Bob and Garrett's life, and a bunch of people from Juneau came over there, and the FFA was trying to get a hold of us all day, and the police department, and it was a big deal over there. And the next morning, I had a flight out to Seattle, and then a connector flight to North Dakota later that evening, so I was right back in the air shortly after, and which wasn't as bad because it was a large plane and not a small plane like that one. I'm just overjoyed and happy to be alive. I hope you enjoyed the detailed account of what happened. I'm sorry if you didn't want to listen to this whole long drawn out story, but I know a lot of people in my life would want to hear it this way. And so yeah. God bless. Thanks for listening.